We have our first guest, Thomas Winstanley from edibles.com. Thomas, thank you for joining us here today as our very first guest.
Honored.
You didn't even know you were going to be our first guest.
I didn't
know.
Yeah. And we've been doing this now. We've done MJ Biz interviews. I think this is maybe 3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah. 3 or 4 years, a variety of different locations.
Yes.
Sometimes in dispensary, sometimes trade show floor, sometimes in booth. I think this is the 4th one.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it. Yes, well, welcome. We've never done it this early in the morning. Vegas time for sure.
Yeah.
Clearly a mistake that we're doing it now, not that we haven't done it as early as before. But why it's topical conversation, obviously you're with edibles.com, Hemp-Derived THC marketplace, and that has been in the news, let's say, over the past, 3 weeks or a month.
Yeah.
What is your first vibes being here?
Well, it's interesting coming back. I haven't come to MJ BizCon as a hemp person, so this is kind of coming back. I wasn't here last year. But I've been really interested to hear kind of everybody's perspective. It's always really helpful to understand both what's happening in cannabis and then also be with a lot of the thought leaders on the hemp side who are here too. And I think that's really part of the value of coming out to these conferences is where you get all of these thought leaders together trying to figure out what is happening, what is the level of optimism. I remain cautiously optimistic, I'll say. And I think it's helpful to start having conversations with cannabis operators too and get their perspective because I think we all live in these bubbles of cannabis, hemp. There are brands that are kind of floating between both ecosystems. But it's been really interesting to see that hemp is very much a topic of conversation here now. And I think it's going to continue to be one, especially given what we are seeing in the market today.
When you say topic of conversation, before we went live, like, is it a little bit of fuck you guys and I told you so?
Yeah,
or
right.
is it a bit of like,
Yeah.
like we're glad the competition is going to be less? Like what, or is it like what great brands that we could bring to the cannabis market? Like what is the, or is it all of those things at the Chandelier Bar?
Yeah, I mean, it's all the Chandelier Bar for sure. Topic of discussion, maybe a soft way of putting it. I think there's a lot of healthy discourse where I've talked to folks who are like, great, you guys are going to go away. Stop stealing our business. You are a distraction to what we've all been fighting for. And I think that's a healthy conversation because I don't think we are having these types of healthy conversations about cannabis and hemp and what regulation looks like. And even though, there are the folks who are saying, separate, treat them separately, go in different directions. There are the one plant people who are saying regulate THC as the molecule. It's really a discussion about what is the path to a framework that coexistence can happen and how can we work on coexistence. And obviously across that spectrum of that discourse, there are people who are more flagrant about wanting to see hemp go away. There are people who are very strong advocates who don't want to see THC taking away from people. And I think the really core insight that I resurface with a lot of these folks, many people got into this industry to create safe access to THC in any way, shape, or form. Both hemp and cannabis do that justice. And I think we have to remind ourselves of that. Where this starts to net out, it's beyond me. I think right now there's a lot of discussion about descheduling on the cannabis side, on the federal side. There's also obviously all of the fallout from recriminalization in the CR for hemp. And so I think there's a very diverse body of opinions on it.
Wow, you're a diplomat.
I think we all have to be diplomatic. I think that's a really important part.
President?
I agree.
I think we have to be diplomatic. Like
everybody has to come to the table
for
and
sure.
have conversations. I will say that the narrative is interesting because what you're talking about is safe access, and I am seeing some of the cannabis operators lean very quickly and heavily into some of the reefer madness that we see the prohibitionists talking about, pointing fingers at anomalous and bad actor products that are out in the market, of like super, super potent products and being like, well, this is why. And it's like, okay, that's something that we can all agree on, is that we don't need 10,000 milligram edibles.
Definitely not.
That isn't safe access. That is something else. And And so it's like that needs to go away. That's static. It's like we don't need to keep arguing about that. Let's talk about what this could look like as safe access for people all over the country in some other way.
There's no question, and I think there's also opportunity on both sides. And I think this gets lost in the discourse where, there are products that regulated cannabis markets can bring into the hemp market, and there are products that the hemp market can start to bring into the regulated market. And I think there is. Right now, it's almost kind of a THC civil war with mini civil wars in between cannabis and hemp. And I think altruistically, we have to find ways to coexist, and I think it would be a disservice to think that hemp giving access to THC in a regulatory framework through hemp over, since 2018, 2019, that has introduced way more people into THC. That also will bode well for future of cannabis legalization because you have a much larger total addressable market size who's now entering the category, who is kept from it for years.
Can you talk more about that? I'd be interested to hear from your experience with edibles.com, what you're learning about consumers.
Yeah. I mean, our consumers are coming from states that don't have cannabis frameworks. They're 55 and older. They are... we see really high retention rates on the platform, which is amazing, which means that people are really liking this. And I think hemp is a Trojan horse to reach the consumers that cannabis operations just can't today. And, folks in South Carolina, South Carolina is a big market for us. There's not going to be a cannabis policy there anytime soon unless there's federal disclosure, but they like the products. So this is good because when we do have to have a bigger discussion at the federal government about THC regulation, well, now you know that South Carolina is now engaged in buying THC products. They are going to be advocates for some form of protection. And right now, protections are few and far between at this point. And so we have to leverage this critical mass of consumers coming in from states who are not regulated markets who are now saying, yeah, we want these products. We want access to them. We need those people to go tell their senators when bills come up to protect this category. You need both to get us to a place where we have preservation of category, of just THC in general. It's going to be hairy. There's no question this is not an easy fix. But I think over time, we have to continue in this direction where there is access to it, where you have consumers who are now engaged in the category who are then going to become the advocates to get policy done. That's just the simplest way of looking at it, in my view.
Can I am being the gadfly on the panel. I try to be a diplomatic gadfly though. But where I still go back to is that this is all well and good, and yeah. I agree with a lot of what you said. I disagree with what you said, but but where I always go back to is that from a federal political perspective, Rand Paul's last bit attempt to get the loophole reinstated was lost, 76-24.
Yeah.
How are you getting? The licensed cannabis industry can't even get banking done.
Yeah.
And hasn't for years. And so how does the hemp space convince 60 senators that it's worth the political capital to put into place a recreational psychotropic psychoactive drug, because it's drugs, and drug policy doesn't follow rational lines. And that's the skeptic. So it's we can make all the serious, thoughtful, rational points about the importance of this stuff as a medicine, economically, but none of it matters because it's drug policy. And the other problem too is then, all right, so let's say the FDA regulates it. They kicked the FDA. The FDA has been 6 years trying to get CBD studied and didn't.
Yeah.
So what happens in that interim period? Is it still, so it's just, I am skeptical that it's going to be able to be pulled off.
You're always going to be skeptical.
I'm always going to be skeptical.
No, and I think that's
so that's why I say I'm a gadfly.
So I like that you brought up. I love that you brought up the Rand Paul amendment on the floor, because that was an amazing signal that I think people lost looking at, because you had Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and you had some very liberal people supporting it. Mm-hmm. Then you also had Ted Cruz and Crenshaw in Texas supporting it. Mm-hmm. So I want to be really clear. Yes, that was the numbers don't look good, but if you look beyond the numbers, part of the reason, and we've talked to staffers from a multitude of other states after that vote, was that they said this was not the time to have the conversation about hemp because we're talking about the Affordable Care Act. Signaling votes against continuing resolution at the time was death knell for a lot of folks on the Republican side.
Well, but it wouldn't have held it up. It would not. If that had passed, it still wouldn't have held it. So it wasn't. It was
an ancillary topic of discussion under a cloak of a much darker
on an appropriations bill.
In an appropriations bill too, and so when we've talked to a lot of the folks who didn't vote, their vote for the CR was not a vote against hemp; it was a vote to open the government up. And so in follow-up conversations with them, they say, as we work on a new bill that we're working on with Senator Griffith, we have a lot of bipartisan support. And I think that's where, the optics of the hemp ban coming through the CR package, as much as I have my issues with Mitch McConnell, it was one of the most brilliant political moves I've ever seen because he knew we couldn't fight him. We had no room to negotiate on that. But what I do think is that was a battle we lost, but I think there is, throughout Congress, there's still a lot of bipartisan support to get something done. And even still, I would argue that getting federal protection of some form of THC now with this topic that is front and center is going to help build the case for more progressive policy on cannabis as well. We need THC protections at the federal level. There's just no question about it. Watching this type of ban come through is regressive to having THC at all at the federal level. So I'm still hopeful, even though that bill, that appropriations language that Paul brought forward, we saw, Warnock and Ossoff from Georgia, who have never publicly been too out front about their support of hemp products. Well, they actually supported Paul in the first time that we've seen around protecting the category.
Or anything.
Right. Yeah, right. I mean, and I will tell you, when you look at the people on the board, when I start to look at the map of Congress and seeing, again, Ted Cruz and Crenshaw in Texas in support of it, and then you have the Bernie Sanders and the Ossoffs, like that to me is, well, now you have this really interesting bipartisan support around some form of THC regulation. Yes, it's hemp for now, but we're talking low dose. Over time, getting federal protection is going to become a stepping stone to true cannabis like regulation and THC regulation at a federal level. So and I think we need it.
Thomas, just to sort of square the circle here, explain edibles.com has 340 something days with a shot clock before the hemp ban goes into effect. What are the first three things that are on your agenda in January 2026?
Yeah, so what we did was, what we are looking at is, we're kind of looking at it as almost like a half-year plan, right? Mm-hmm. Where we know that there's a limited amount of time between now, the start of the new year, and Congress going into summer recess. That's going to be a really important window. And I think as we go through that process, we will see signals of, is this happening? Is this not going to happen? Mm-hmm. What is the landscape? And I think, part of what we want to do is we put our best plans forward of, okay, we know that there's going to have to be another CR passed in January. Is there an opportunity for an extended moratorium? Is there opportunity to rescind that appropriations language? Is there, we're working on, Wyden's got a bill that he's working on, Griffith's got a bill that he's also working on. Are there vehicles there? Really, it is a short window because I think Congress out of 365 days are only in for, 200 days. So it's a much shorter window.
And you're talking about an election year. It's going to be less.
Yeah, I mean, and I will also add to the point earlier too, would I be as bullish about getting something done and bipartisan support if it wasn't a midterm year? I don't think so. I think midterm elections are a really key part of being able to get this to happen. Because when you look at the total addressable market size, again, of people who are purchasing hemp products, when I was talking to a reporter at The Hill, he told me after the appropriations language passed, the number one article on The Hill was not about ACH, it was about hemp.
Right.
And so I think because hemp all of a sudden became part of the forefront, you were going to have a mobilization where as we get into midterm season, we think people are going to, slacktivism works. Like people will write to their senators if they know that their senators are on the hook for something that supports or doesn't support hemp. And so that to me is kind of part of, as I look at the planning phase of next year, it is, one, how do we get a strategic framework around getting policy done? What multiple avenues do we have available to us? On our business side, our businesses, we are still going full blast. Like, we are not going to make any pivots. We're not going to make any changes. If anything, we want to ramp up. And we also want to start to get a little bit more involved in activating our consumers now that they are starting to understand what is happening. And I think the other piece of what mobilization has to look like in 2026 is, I don't think consumers realized what was at stake a few weeks ago, but now they do. And I think it's incumbent upon all hemp operators to start to really push the message out and keep them along on the path and give them the strategies to help keep the category open. Because I do think if it disappears, there are going to be a lot of consumers who are going to be really upset and pissed off. And I think that those products, regulated products, yes, will go away, but the black market ones won't. Those 1,000 milligram gummies on the shelves are still going to be there. And that, to me, is where we have to stay the course and be ready.
I just want to kind of add a little bit of depth to the strategy, because we do have limited time. You mentioned kind of the civil war between hemp and cannabis, but this is also existing in hemp to hemp, and then also within alcohol, who is a very significant contributor to this conversation. And it's not just about educating the Congress people. Correct. It's about making sure that the powers that be behind the scenes, all of it, are also kind of aligning.
It's the wholesalers, it's the distributors. I mean, it's, and I think this is where what the hemp industry needs to do, and this is something that I work really hard, I'm on the phone a lot with folks, is we have to kind of put our energy behind similar goals. And we have to align on, like, what is the tolerance for what we can get the largest percentage of hemp operators behind, and then strategically work to bring that message across all of these subsets. And it's not easy. I mean, this is going to be, 2026 is going to be a pretty big make or break year. And we also, who knows what's going to happen also adjacent in politics that might take thunder from us.
Right.
You really are diplomatic.
Well, because I think the one, and I mean that seriously, is because the one thing that the license industry has always sort of deluded itself. I mean, I say licensed cannabis is we've always deluded ourselves that Congress and the federal government cares about cannabis. That's why we had always heard, safe banking is right around the corner. Yeah. And even, the MJ Bizzes in 2018, I mean, everybody thought that legalization was just 18 months away. Yeah. And it's because we've always thought that Congress cares about cannabis.
Well, maybe Mitch McConnell gave us the biggest gift possible, which
did.
was first the Farm Bill, and now it's the shot clock.
Gave us a loophole?
He gave
that's
the
not
loophole.
A gift, that was a mistake.
Whatever it was.
But it doesn't matter what it was.
Mitch McConnell created the first
right?
opportunity, and now he's created the second one, which is to pull up our pants and get to work.
Actually, I just want to highlight what you just said. It doesn't matter how it happened or what happened.
Exactly.
It just
is. It's that's where that's where actually some of the discourse I had last night with cannabis operators was they kept throwing the loophole, and I'm like, it's water under the bridge. It happened. It existed. It's here.
I don't agree with
that. The same thing happened in Minnesota, though. That whole that was a mistake. That was
it turns out that actually was an intentional mistake by a lobbyist.
Sure.
It turns out. But I don't fully agree with that.
But if it was I was talking to a federal official yesterday about this, and I said to him,
at the conference.
Yeah, and I said to him, well, if it was such a mistake, why didn't you fix it sooner?
Because Congress is lazy.
But but again,
they've known about it for years.
You're living with something that you deem a mistake for so long without addressing it, and then creating a bigger category.
It's a great question. It's a great question.
And why does the FDA not send more warning letters?
All right, resources. Speaking of delusion, right? we live in a democracy.
This is great.
Right?
I love this.
If we're getting
it's true. Well, I mean, it's if there was a mistake, then why don't we fix it?
This
and
is
why
a
are
great
we waiting?
Segue. Thomas, you're going to be on their podcast in January, February.
And at Cannabis Summit, yes.
Baby, I'm not going to Cannabis.
But so we have to end this. I'm sorry. We could do this literally all day, but maybe we will. You're gonna have the same conversation a million times on the trade show floor. Probably less friendly because Mark won't be there.
Do you guys want to do a thumb war?
No, I love it. No, but I also think
hilarious.
this is the kind of conversation we need to have to air this shit
I totally
out.
agree.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know if we can.
No, you're good.
This is a weak podcast.
Nobody's
Yeah,
watching.
it's like, okay.
Nobody's watching. No.
But I think this is the
Just kidding.
discourse. This is the discourse that has to happen, that has been building up for 6 years.
Totally agree.
And it's like, you know what? Even if we may not be on the same page, we still all want the same thing, which is like, let's get THC access. Let's get THC protections.
100%.
You know, and we have to be
100%.
very thoughtful about the avenues to get there. And we have to be really smart about not shooting ourselves in the foot or shooting each other in the foot accidentally.
I'll just say
Amen to that.
say one last thing as someone who's been in the industry now for 10 years is when I first entered, getting products into edibles.com was the dream. That getting THC into platforms like that was the dream. How it happened is what it is, but like we did it and people got access. And if we are a democracy, we want to delude ourselves into thinking that the voters now have access to THC and they will vote.
Correct.
I was going to say something much less elegant, which was like, I think people getting high isn't that good.
Yeah. Yep.
Again, that's way less elegant what we just said, but I think the same point. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us as the first guest here on this morning in Cannabis, live from Las Vegas, as you can see. We're going to welcome on our next guest. We will see you on the trade show floor. You'll be the one having arguments with most of the people.
I don't
walking
argue.
by.
I have constructive discourse.
There you go.
Thanks, guys.
Real diplomat. Thank you so much, Thomas.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.